Seven-time Cup Series champion Jimmie Johnson announcing today that next year will be his last full-time season of racing.
2019, when I announced my retirement, I really was retiring. I really thought I was. In the car, I have yet to experience that, like, real fear. If I'm fearing anything, I shouldn't be in it. For me, when I find something I'm focused on, I can't stop.
And look at that. That's 1914. Ran in the Indianapolis 500. You believe that?
That's brave. On bricks.
Yeah, on bricks.
On bricks.
Yeah, come a long way
Oh,
from that.
I haven't looked, but I doubt there's a seatbelt.
Yeah, well, or it's not a very good one.
Not very good, yeah,
either.
piece of cloth.
Yeah, how does it feel like running a historic race like that?
To be here, I've been to this track many times, and there is a energy when you pull in and drive through the tunnel and pull into the track. And I've felt very fortunate to experience it. NASCAR and the Brickyard 400 is one of the biggest races in NASCAR. So I feel very fortunate to have experienced it, but I have come to realize, especially after attending last year's Indy 500, that there's another level, next level. And I, as a fan last year, in worked in the booth with NBC, experienced it, and left here thinking, I have to do this. Like, I know I didn't think I wanted to do it, but I have to do it. And I went to work and better understood the safety, and then, of course, once I got comfortable with the safety of the car, I started testing on ovals, and a lot of things had to happen after that. But I am so excited to stand on the front straightaway here back home again in Indiana. Drivers start your engines, like that moment, and to be able to live it firsthand in comparison to all the years as a fan watching it. I can't believe that moment's going to happen.
Yeah, the fanfare and everything that comes with it, you've never experienced as a driver, and you've kind of previewed what that's going to be like, but what do you think that moment will actually be like standing on the grid come race day?
The front straightaway of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is the most intimate part of any racetrack that I've experienced. I mean, you have fans on both sides. It's like a tunnel on the front stretch, and you can hear anyone. I mean, anyone can get your attention if they want to. I mean, it's everything is that close and compressed. So to have a full house here, and I've never seen 300,000+ people in one place. So I think it's just going to be insane.
What's your earliest memory of the Indianapolis 500?
I can't remember the year, but my grandfather, my dad's father, was a huge A.J. Foyt fan, and I remember him pulling me onto the couch. They would stop through Southern California and visit us. They were retired and had a home in Arizona and would drive from Arizona up the coast fishing all the way to Canada and then return in the winter. And as they would pass through town on their way north, they would stop. And in May, I remember my grandfather being at our house and just pulling me in, like, that Foyt. You want to know what a man's like? That A.J. Foyt, he's a man. So that's like one of my first memories. And I feel like it was the year A.J. jumped out of his car and started hammering on the right front suspension with a hammer. It was either that year or maybe they were showing a highlight of it, but I remember him pointing that out to me and just thinking, A.J. Foyt's the man.
The last time we talked was November 2020, your final full-time season in NASCAR. And, I think retirement's a funny word because you normally think it's like, oh, full stop, but you've actually gone to faster cars, you know what I mean? Take me through your mindset of retiring from NASCAR specifically.
I really felt like I was retiring. I thought I might run some sports car races, maybe go back to the dirt and jump an off-road truck here and there. I had no idea or intentions to end up full-time anywhere. And opportunities presented themselves to go test an Indycar. I truly enjoyed the experience of driving the Indycar. And I thought, man, I guess I'd try a limited schedule if we could find the sponsorship. Along comes Carvana, and it's like, well, I guess we're going IndyCar racing. And then after the first year, and then attending the Indy 500 in 2021, was like, man, I really want to do the full schedule. And here I am back racing for a championship again.
So I know full schedule wasn't on your radar in November 2020, but was IndyCar starting to be in the mix as you were looking to transition, or like you mentioned, you were ready to be done?
Yeah, I would say like early spring, I had a chance to drive Chip Ganassi's IndyCar on the Indy GP road course. So it really did start in my final year of Cup, this idea of doing something else. And it was more for the experience, and then chasing that experience buzz. It was so much fun and such a rush that it just keeps compounding, and here we are.
You go from the veteran in NASCAR, the championed guy that everyone's looked to for advice, to the rookie seeking out advice in IndyCar. What was that dynamic change for you like?
I thought that the two worlds would be much closer, and to my surprise, they are so far apart. I am finding that the ovals are closer together, and my experience can carry over from a driving perspective, car setup, things like that. But they really are worlds apart, and that is humbling at times, but it's also very exciting at times.
We were talking at dinner the other night, and we compared your transition from NASCAR to IndyCar like Michael Jordan's transition from basketball to baseball. Maybe you even have it a little bit more difficult. How tough was it to unlearn NASCAR and learn IndyCar?
Yeah, I don't think I figured that out just yet. I'm still working on it. And what's really a bummer in IndyCar on a road course, the default habits that I have are my NASCAR habits, and they are really bad habits for an IndyCar, and they create more problems. And you lock tires and you put it in the wall, and things like that happen. So it really is a much different discipline with the inputs you give the car, the way that you're maximizing the downforce that the IndyCar has. It's just the polar opposite of the way you drive a Cup car.
So like the bad habits you have in IndyCar, the good habits that made you a good driver in NASCAR, first time you get on IndyCar track, you're like, well, what's wrong with me? I thought I was doing this right.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's been so drilled in, in these, ways to finesse a NASCAR vehicle. You do not finesse an IndyCar. You drive the you-know-what out of it. Every input you give the car is an aggressive one, where the big, heavy, low downforce NASCAR vehicle, you gotta take your time with it and just kind of drift the car around and ease into the brake pedal. The IndyCar is quite the opposite.
For myself, not being an engineer, I feel like I have a decent idea of how a NASCAR vehicle works. And I had the chance to check out your guys' garage and walk up and down pit road, talk to your crew members yesterday. It was a completely different world. I was hearing phrases I've never heard before.
Right.
And it's almost like there's a language barrier between NASCAR and IndyCar. Did you deal with any of that? Just learning different phrases on how to say certain things versus others like you were doing in NASCAR?
Without a doubt. And now when I talk to my NASCAR friends, I can see that I've largely converted to this world and the lingo in this world. So, but fortunately, racing is a small bubble, and people know what you're speaking about. But as I'm developing my relationship with Eric Cowden, who's my engineer here, which would be similar to the crew chief in NASCAR, we're spending a lot of time making sure that the language we're using, especially on the ovals. Now I'm in an oval and I kind of default back to my language and vocabulary from NASCAR, just making sure that he understands what I'm even saying and what part of the track I'm talking about. So it's been fun. Really started in Texas and then the early days here at the Speedway, just making sure that he definitely knows what I'm saying, and we can progress the race car.
What are some examples of things you've said, like a NASCAR phrase, and they're like, what are you talking about? And say this instead. Do you have any? So
the biggest one is, I've always used the term landing. So as you approach a corner, the driver typically describes the way the car turns off the wall. There's usually a transition of the banking that the car drives over. And then when the car lands in the corner, there's a lot of different forces taking place, and the engineers can help you or hurt you in those areas depending on what you're describing. So I was talking about where the car was landing, and I could see the look on Cowden's face, like, landing? And then in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm used to driving this NASCAR that travels 4 inches, and this IndyCar maybe travels 4 millimeter. Yeah. So the landing thing, I'm not sure he's gonna get it, and we talked through it, and he goes, yeah, kind of pieced it together that you meant max travel. Landing is max travel. I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I was talking
Bingo,
about.
yeah.
So, the vertical loads and where the car compresses the most.
Yeah, you need like a translator, like to sit in between, like
Yeah.
whenever you're having conversation. You mentioned the ovals racing here at Indy, Texas. Is that familiar territory? I know, NASCAR and IndyCar are obviously different, but does it give you a little sense of like, all right, this feels familiar?
It does, much more than anything I've experienced so far. And as I continue to have more days in the car and we adjust the IndyCar more, I'm realizing how similar the worlds are. It's coming along, and I'm starting to trust my instincts, my ideas for car setup, and as I'm building that confidence, we're discovering some things that do cross over between the two.
How do you trust this car?
Experience, lap times, being in races, being in these moments. I've had a few close calls off of turn 2 in the practice sessions that have started so far. And as frightening as those moments have been, they've been great learning moments. So it's just about getting experience.
That first moment, I heard I think it was Scott Dixon told you, yeah, you can run wide open through the corners at Texas. You're like, what? Like that first moment, what was that like of just, all right, he told me I can do it. I'm just going to go for it.
Yeah, I knew this would be the big challenge in trusting the car, way more than my senses. But to have somebody like Scott Dixon to lean on, he's not going to send me into a bad situation, So, I look at him, make sure we make eye contact, and he's like, yeah, flat. Okay, flat. And then now I'm in my own head as I leave pit lane and I'm on the track, and I'm like, I just kind of made an agreement with Scott that I was going to go flat, and I better go flat. So, you just talk yourself into it.
Yeah, you got to trust, like you mentioned, the experience, some of those guys. What's it been like leaning on those veterans, those teammates?
It's amazing. The amount of support I have around me, the friendship that I had with all these guys prior to coming on board, they were friendships I was so thankful to have, and those relationships have only grown even more. So I've really enjoyed these season and a half, essentially, or the season, almost 2 years that I've been really working with the team and building those deeper relationships.
We're talking about the speed. Part of the reason you're running the ovals is the increased safety over the past couple of years. How much does that creep in your mind, the presence of danger being a race car driver?
In the car, I have yet to experience that like real fear. Sure, when stuff goes wrong and you're crashing, that runs through your veins. But when I put on a helmet and get in a car, I've always told myself, if I'm fearing anything, I shouldn't be in there. And that has been my biggest concern with an IndyCar, because on the outside looking at it, in the past, I have not felt the car as safe as it could be. And I knew if I got in and put the helmet on, I would ignore that. So I was very measured in my approach trying to come to IndyCar. And once I made the internal decision that I wanted to try it, I then really engaged with drivers that were in crashes here at the Indy race last year, in with our engineering department, talking to Jay Fry, looking at data from IndyCar that they can show and support how much safer the cars are. And then once I checked that box from being outside the car, I knew I was going to be fine when I got in it. But I really wanted to be fair to myself and my family to look at things outside of the car and make sure I was comfortable there first. You
talk about the internal decision you make, but then there's also the family decision. What was that conversation like, especially when you were thinking about going full-time? The ovals are more dangerous than the road courses. What was that conversation first like?
My wife knows me well, and she could see it slowly building, and she just, as always, said, look, I trust you. If you're comfortable with it, I am. And in the beginning, I made her uncomfortable with the idea based on my honest, opinion of the cars on ovals. So, as I worked my way into being comfortable, she supported me through it, and here we are. What's that trust like in your family? My wife always says, I knew what I signed up for, and I'm thankful for that, and I understand that. I take great responsibility with that trust she puts in me, and try to make the best decisions I can. What did she sign up for? Like, how would you describe yourself in terms of chasing interests and hobbies? One that's not going to sit still, and it's just not me. I think she feels like I may have duped her a little bit, and rightfully so, because in 2019, when I announced my retirement, I really was retiring. And then as 2020 went along and I had a chance to drive the Indycar, she's like, what are you doing? Like, I thought you were done. I'm like, so did I. I really, really thought I was. The experience has been so great, and she sees that in me. She sees, how excited I am to get in the car, how excited I am to go to work every day, and is just a great supporter of me, and I'm very thankful for that.
Your little ones have grown up around the track, and I feel like they can understand racing a little bit more now that they're older. What do they think of Dad being a race car driver?
It's hard to say because they don't know me any differently. I do feel, though, where they are with their age and where I am in my career, that there are a lot of teachable moments. And my wife and I are always trying to apply what we're dealing with and use those moments as teachable moments. Clearly, I have my career in racing and the ups and downs that come with it. My wife has an art gallery in Charlotte that's now 7 years old, and the ups and downs that go with that. And we feel like we're hopefully exposing them to work ethic, morals, desire, passion, all these things that as a parent you really hope to instill in your children. So, back to your question of what do they think of Dad as a driver, I think they believe it's cool, but at the same time we're really just trying to raise two good little humans, and I think we're giving them plenty of diversity to look at in two very busy parents.
What kind of guy are you if you don't work out?
I'm better if I work out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was up early this morning, and even if it's a mail-it-in workout session, just doing it puts me in a different mindset all day long.
Is it a different type of workout for IndyCar? Can you carry over some of the NASCAR workouts to this, or is it different?
Yeah, there are pieces. The NASCAR side were much longer durations of training and lower heart rate, where the IndyCar is a much more demanding vehicle. So I find I'm doing a lot more interval work now, and my cycling's really more of a recovery day, where in NASCAR, that was kind of the cornerstone of my training program.
Is it higher intensity workout?
It is. Much higher, much more physical, much higher heart rate. And without having power steering, the forearms, the grip, shoulders and stuff really do come into play in the IndyCar.
Yeah. Watching your heart rate. Is there a certain heart rate you don't want to get over when you're in terms of working out? Is there a zone that you're trying to get in terms of being in the most shape for IndyCar?
You need to be in the red, in
the red.
That highest zone quite a bit in training, because in the car, that's really where it sits in the races. No power steering, short 90-minute races essentially, and the physicality of how aggressive you need to drive the car, it takes a lot. And then I think something that will help lower my heart rate over time is just getting comfortable in these cars. I'm still on edge and have a higher heart rate, I think, because I'm not as comfortable as I could be. And all that just puts me in the red zone in the race.
How long do you think it'll take to get full comfort in a race car here in IndyCar?
I don't know. I thought I would be much closer than I am now. The ovals, though, it's wild. I look at my heart rate on the ovals, and it's much lower, and that's where I've developed this recent kind of opinion of things. And I hope it happens soon, because I feel like there are times that I put together a session or part of a race where I'm really comfortable and on the edge of what the car's capable of, but staying in that sweet spot for the entire race or all weekends just a challenge right now.
Is that frustrating that you expected to be a little bit more comfortable than you are at this point?
Some days it is, because I feel like if I have a good practice session before qualifying, that qualifying I'm going to have my personal best, and I'll go out and qualifying and not deliver, and then that frustration sets in. But there are other times where I lay down the best lap that I can, and I'm at the tail of the field. Shoot, that's as good as I can do. I got to be realistic and honest with myself about it, and know the challenges that I'm trying to overcome. So, expectations are a funny thing, and some days they get the best of me, sometimes they don't.
Thinking bigger picture, how much of your future do you have mapped out? Do you want to really get this IndyCar career up and running? How far have you looked down the road in terms of what you want to do for the rest of your career?
I'm open to it. Certainly, having the team open-minded to it, sponsors open-minded to it, that's all part of the journey. Very thankful, at a minimum, to have had 2 seasons in IndyCar. And if I could extend to 3, 4, 5 years, I mean, I would stick around and do this as long as, I had an opportunity to do so.
You'd go as far as five full-time years?
I'm only going to get better. And in my opinion, this 17 race schedule is, and it's only 16 weekends because we have a doubleheader. It's such a better schedule to keep up with in the NASCAR days, yeah.
Is it tough? Because I know the schedule's sometimes a little bit more spaced out than the week-to-week by NASCAR. Do you like that better, it seems like?
Where I am in my life today, yes. It
Yeah.
gives a nice balance for us to support our kids and for me to actually be able to be at events that my kids are participating in, support my wife, do things as a family unit instead of it just being about me at the track.
How much do you need, I'm going to use the term like the noise, in terms of chasing something, having that carrot in front of you, IndyCar, NASCAR, or even working out? How much do you need something to chase in terms of keeping yourself interested and motivated?
I enjoy the chase. Accountability, I've found, is probably the best kind of gut check for me. And if it's knowing that I agreed to meet some guys at 5 a.m. for a bike ride in the morning, I'll get up and do it. I'm always chasing something, but I can talk myself out of it at times.
Yeah.
And having that accountability, if it's friend groups, if it's a Chad Knaus type personality, that, and looking back on my years in Cup, sure, there were some tough moments through all of that, but he only wanted the best for me, and his accountability brought the best out of me. I also need that accountability piece.
Who do you think holds you most accountable?
Where I am today, I feel like that's more on my shoulders than anything. I've always had a part of that in my head, but with age and maturity, I think that I'm that strongest force right now.
How often do you keep up with what's going on in NASCAR?
I pay attention, especially on my off weeks. I've watched a handful of races, certainly through social media. I can stay connected, so I'm keeping an eye on all my friends and certainly the Hendrick group. My heart's still at Hendrick.
Well, what does everyone in the NASCAR world think of you racing in IndyCar?
And first and foremost, very supportive and hope that I'm enjoying myself and having fun. I think they're all very happy that I've chosen to run ovals and that I can better represent the NASCAR crowd. I see Ryan Blaney quite a bit. We golf occasionally. Of course, staying in touch with most of my Hendrick, teammates and such, and their curiosity of the cars and the speed and the demands that come with this. Everybody's always curious what's happening over here.
Is there any genuine curiosity, like, oh, I'm thinking about running, the Indy 500 or trying it out? Have you noticed any of that in the NASCAR world?
I feel like I scared away a lot of NASCAR guys, especially last year. I feel like this year I might swing that back and guys would consider maybe doing the double or come and run the 500.
What scared them away?
My stellar performance in 2021.
It's tough, man. It's tough.
It really is. And I don't know if everybody, I had to be in a special place in my career to go eat humble pie every weekend and go try something different. But for me, like all that stuff I worried about in the past that would have kept me from doing it, it's behind me. And it's really about the experience, and I'm having a great one.